First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. Thank you for joining us. I'm Greg Nibbler. We live stream here at the Fox 12 Oregon Newsroom every weekday, starting at 1, going throughout the afternoon. So that's what you see behind me. Today, we are talking about 3 satellites being launched by NASA and NOAA. And so these satellites in particular are going to be something that can do a number of different things. One of them is going to the edge of the solar system, but partially they're going to be going up there to actually monitor space weather. Now, we get into what space weather is during this interview. We're also going to be talking about the importance of that and how that can affect things here on Earth. And that includes technology. You think about our phones, you think about GPS, satellites, everything that's connected with that. So much of our lives are now connected that way. And so space weather is going to be something that's very important to follow along with, to be able to track, to be able to know what's happening. So we're going to talk about that. Another big issue with space weather, or something that's not necessarily an issue, but something that you should be aware of that it can affect, is agriculture. So we're going to get into that as well. And we're going to be speaking to Dr. Nicole Duncan, who is the Chief Strategist for Civil Space. I had to look there to make sure that I got her title right. Chief Strategist for Civil Space for NASA. Really great to have her on. So we'll jump right into that conversation now. Thank you for having time to join us here to talk about this. It's such an important thing for so many aspects of our lives. But to start off, would you mind just giving us a rundown of what this launch is and these 3 different particular spacecraft that are going up?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first spacecraft is IMAP, and IMAP is a NASA science mission that's going to look at the outer boundary of our solar system. That's called the heliosphere. Now, the next 2 missions I worked on, one of them is a space weather follow-on, L1, which is a NOAA mission that's going to help with advanced warning and forecasting of space weather events. And then the final one is another NASA science mission called Carruthers, and that mission will look back at the Earth and look at the Earth's exosphere, which is the outermost layer of the atmosphere.
When we're talking about space weather, could you give us an example of what that is and how that can affect people here on Earth?
Yeah, absolutely. So the sun is very active, and at times it releases a bunch of particles and magnetic fields out into interplanetary space, and that can pass by our technology that's in space, our satellites, and also impact us here on Earth. So it can create problems for the spacecraft, and that can create problems for here on Earth as well with our telecommunications, GPS, even agriculture.
Well, yeah, because if you think about how much of our infrastructure is tied into these satellites, whether, as you mentioned, your phone, GPS, pretty much everything is tied into that in some way, shape, or form, I would imagine at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, a lot of people are surprised by the agriculture tie. And actually, we had a big storm about a year ago, which created really big impacts because it was the time of planting. And so the farmers couldn't get that precise location to plant their crops.
Which is huge here. In a lot of places, obviously, but here in Oregon, agriculture is just such a huge part of what we have going, especially with the Willamette Valley. So this is something that could directly impact people. So with these satellites, how will you be able to better predict what those certain situations could be?
Great question. So the SWIFO satellite will have an instrument to look at the sun, and it'll detect a few days in advance if we think one of these events is going to hit. And then when the storm actually passes over the spacecraft, it'll take measurements that'll help us understand things like when it'll hit, where it'll hit, and how big it will be. So we'll get that much more precise warning once it actually passes over the spacecraft.
So this would, just to reiterate kind of what you were saying, so you might even be able to specifically say this is going to hit this region, this time, this much of an impact that we're expecting to happen based on this information you can gather from these satellites.
Maybe not so precisely as this particular region,
Gotcha.
But about what time will give us an idea of generally which side of the Earth would have the most amount of impact.
Still very important, yeah. So that's a lot that's going to be going there. Now with these ones that are up there, what are some other big things that you're going to be able to find out with this? I'm sure there's a lot of data that you're going to be gathering for many different reasons, but what are some big ones that you think people should know about?
Yeah, so for the Space Weather Follow-On, or SWIFO, it's really all about those advanced warning times that are really important, and making sure that we have enough warning for things like our power grids. When it comes to Carruthers, it's a scientific mission, so we're going to understand things like what that outermost layer of our atmosphere, how it evolves in time, and that's really important because it helps dissipate some of the impacts of space weather. It's also where a lot of satellites move through, so it's important to understand from kind of an engineering perspective as well.
And how long will it take once these are launched before you'll start getting some of this information back?
So it'll probably be a few months before we start seeing that information come back.
How does it feel, just for you working on these, coming up this launch? At the time of our recording right now, the launch hasn't happened yet. How does it feel, getting ready for this and all of this work that's gone into it for this big moment when this is actually heading out into space?
It's pretty incredible. I've been working on these missions for a long time, even before they started actually being built. So probably 5 or 6 years. It feels very incredible.
Wow. So yeah, that's a lot of time put into these, but clearly this information is pretty important. And just to go back to that point too, for everybody watching, just how important is it to have this kind of data going forward when you look at how much technology is incorporated into everything that we do?
It's absolutely essential to have these measurements. So our technological society is at risk from space weather. And what's really great is when you don't hear about it. So for example, that storm that I talked about with agriculture, there weren't really big impacts to the power grid because we were really well prepared, because the power grids have understood for a long time and gotten ready that space weather is a problem. So we're really trying to get the word out so that way other users understand the impacts of space weather.
So this really is something where you'll be able to give up this much more accurate information, and then other organizations can take steps to mitigate some of those issues or effects that would be caused by this.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, for having time to talk to us today too. Is there anything else that you think is important for people to know?
So I think it's important for people to know that also this is one of the first rideshare missions for NASA. It's very exciting. It provides a lot of opportunities to get all of these missions out to Lagrange Point 1.
Yeah, this is a lot of organizations, a lot of people working on all of these, and really exciting stuff to see it all come together and just, as you mentioned, be able to ride share like that. Just get it all out there and get this out there faster. Well, Doctor, thank you very much for joining us here today. I really appreciate it, and best of luck. Excited to see this launch.
Thank you very much. Good to talk with you today.
All right. So again, thank you to the doctor. Thank you to NASA for joining us. It's very interesting to see how that's going to work out. And obviously, once they're up there and start getting data back, then we'll know a lot more. But certainly something that's going to affect a lot of different things in the future for us, whether that's technology or agriculture when it comes to space weather and those storms. I do say thank you for being here as well. So if you're watching us live, fantastic. The Fox 12 Oregon app is a great way to do that. It's on whatever streaming device you have, whether that's your Roku, your Fire TV, your Apple TV, but we're also on the website, we're on your phone, we're on YouTube, we're all over the place. So wherever it is, thank you for doing that. I will say that the app for the streaming app does have some exclusives on there as well, so you might want to grab that if you don't have it already. And feel free to send me an email, fox12now@kptv.com, if you have an idea for a segment or something that you'd like to see covered here on this show. We can do these longer form segments, and that is something I can help you out with. So maybe. I'm not gonna guarantee every time we can do a segment, but certainly send me an email and we'll see what we can do. And we'll be back here shortly. If there's breaking news between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m., this is also the place to go. But we will talk to you soon. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.